Oh,
Nice. Hey everyone, welcome to the webinar today. Thank you to everyone who is here on time for the start of the session. I'm sure we'll have a few more people joining us as usual over the next couple of minutes. So as they continue to join, I will quickly introduce our guest for today, who I'm sure many of you know already. I can see from the live chat already, people are aware of Thomas, but me and Miles, Thomas, I think we called you the Demand Gen Whisperer, which I think is the session that we're about to have today. But it's great to have you with us. And how are things with you?
yeah. Thanks a lot, James. Thanks for inviting me to our second big Demand Gen webinar. Hi, guys, everyone in the chat. I will see maybe some familiar faces then. And yeah, happy to be here. And we're going to talk today a lot about Demand Gen. So yeah, concentrate and take notes, I would say.
Yeah, the session is going to be recorded. I'll say more about that in a second. But just while people are continuing to join us, I know Thomas, you've recently joined the team at Profit Metrics, and just before we switch on the mics, you were saying about some of the interesting work that you guys are doing there. So, is there anything you did let people know about what you're focused on there at Profit Metrics?
Yeah, so I'm working now with Profit Metrics, where I focus on e-com businesses. We're helping our clients at Profit Metrics to succeed with profit bidding. So in general, I do POAS strategies with clients. I just see in the chat that the audio is not working.
Sometimes we get that occasionally. I can hear you fine, Thomas.
Can you
Apologies
hear
if
me
anyone
now?
out
Can you
there.
hear me? I don't know.
Seems
Okay,
like a lot
now
of
it's
people
fine.
it's
Now
fine,
I can
but
hear. Okay, so everything I said was muted, maybe. Yeah.
fingers crossed.
So yeah, I'm working on Profit Metrics now together with Frederick on our clients, our ecom clients, where we do POAS transitions, profit bidding, shopping campaign setups. So yeah, everything that's related to profit bidding inside the ecosystem of Profit Metrics. I'm now there and help a lot of our Google Ads customers to succeed with Profit Metrics. Yeah, and it's also very dynamic landscape. There's a lot of new features that come towards us. So yeah, I'm helping, let's say, our biggest customers to implement Profit Metrics in the best way possible for their Google Ads campaigns and strategies.
Nice, man. I know you're going to be kept busy there. But anyway, just to quickly mention, on the small chance anyone out there isn't already following Thomas on LinkedIn, you can find a link to his LinkedIn profile in the docs section here in Goldcast next to the Q&A tab and the live chat, so you can stay up to date with his latest news announcements, many of which we will be getting into in today's session. We've had a few more people join now, so we'll get going. Again, very welcome to everyone. Glad to have you here, whether you're watching live or if you're watching this session back on demand. For those that don't know me, I'm James. I'm the content lead here at Lunio. I'll be hosting the webinar today. As Thomas alluded to, we've got a lot of content to get through. So we got about 50 minutes to try and get through the key features that we want to let you guys know about in relation to demand gen campaigns. And with the time that we've got left, hopefully 10 minutes at the end, we will go through some Q&A with Thomas. But a few other quick bits of housekeeping before we get into the agenda for today's session. So we are recording the session. As I mentioned, it will be available to watch back on demand. If you have any questions about anything that we covered today, please pop them into the dedicated Q&A tab, not into the live chat where everyone is kind of speaking right now. That's just so the questions don't get lost and buried in the chat. And we'll try and get round to as many of the questions as we can at the end of the session. I'll also mention that you can upvote questions that you're interested in. So that helps me prioritize which ones to ask Thomas first. So if someone else has asked a question that you would also like to know the answer to, please use the upvote button in the docs tab. I've already mentioned we've got some resources in the docs tab here in Goldcast. I'm going to be directing your attention there at relevant parts of the session today so you can get more context, helpful tools, helpful resources that relate to some of the content we'll be covering. We'll also be running a few audience polls during the session, which you can vote on in the polls tab. So please do give us your responses there. You should see a notification pop up whenever a new poll is open for responses, and you can respond by clicking on the polls tab and submitting your answer. So on that note, we're going to bring the first poll up on screen here. So unlike the other polls that we'll be running throughout the session, this first one isn't strictly demand gen related, but it is one of the more noteworthy marketing headlines from recent weeks. So I thought it would be interesting to gauge the audience response here today. So if we open that poll, I'm not sure if everyone can see that on screen. I don't think so. So Ben, maybe if you could share the poll question on screen for me. Thank you very much. So earlier this month, OpenAI announced they will begin testing ChatGPT ads in the US on an impression-based model with ads appearing in the conversational window where contextually relevant. If this becomes available to you later this year, how likely are you to test ChatGPT ads? That is the poll question that we've got. So while we're waiting for responses, Thomas, I'd love to get a quick reaction from you on your response to this announcement from ChatGPT.
Yeah, so my first, let's say, emotions were obviously excitement. We've been all waiting for it. Also to see if OpenAI then creates their own ad manager, if they integrate it within Microsoft ads, for example, since they have a partnership with them since many years already. And now when I heard the news that they will start with like a fixed $60 CPM bid, I think it can be quite difficult for I don't know, for some small advertisers if they will keep the same bid for the rest of advertisers once they open it up for the rest of the world. And I think if we compare a CPM on a, let's say, mid funnel or high funnel campaign, it's quite high. So $60 CPM is like, I would say, yeah, probably 4 times higher than on any other awareness at Google channel at Google. But if these ads are more kind of similar to search or shopping ads, then at the end they are, I would say, quite not cheap, but in the same range at Google. Because if you look at a CPM of a search ad, you will have probably $50 to $100 CPM, and the same goes for shopping ads, right? So I don't know yet how these ads are, in which funnel step these ads are going to present it, if they're more for awareness purposes or if they're really on a low funnel. But then depending on that, we can determine if they are pricing way too high or if they're pricing way too low, which is then opportunity also to put some ad budget from Google towards OpenAI ads. But yeah, at the end, I'm really excited. But I also think that it's like a whole pilot. So they also don't have a lot of machine learning data in the backend. So the algorithm is not good, I would say, in the beginning, not at all. So yeah, right now I think it's more like a gamble and not like an ad platform. But we will see how like the big companies that are testing it now will react.
It seems like most people in the audience are, of a similar opinion to you. Most respondents saying that they're likely to try it out. As you said, Thomas, it is a bit of a gamble because it's so new, but the potential there, I think everyone sees it, and it could potentially be a big win for a lot of people. So Ben, if you could just do me a favor and close down that poll, we'll get into the main agenda for today. So I'm just going to share this agenda slide on screen. So we've got 8 main points to cover on the agenda before we move into the Q&A. First, we're going to explore the significant change that Google made to the demand gen algorithm late last year to help you better understand what that means and how it affects best practices. After that, we're going to quickly go over the new setup guide that Google has created for demand gen campaigns. And then Thomas is going to give us his advice when it comes to CPC versus CPM building models for demand gen. Then we'll move on to look at a perennial problem for performance marketers, cannibalization, and specifically how you can avoid it if you're running PMax and demand gen at the same time, which I'm sure many of you out there are. After that, we'll look at exclusive data from Lunio's 2026 Global Invalid Traffic Report, which reveals how demand gen stacks up against other Google campaign types like display and search in terms of bot traffic. And I'll just mention, if you want to grab a full copy of that report, you can find a link to it in the Docs tab. Next, Thomas is going to give us a quick showcase of the script he created to reveal demand gen channel data. Then we'll come on to the dangers of auto-generated video ad creative for demand gen and how Google has sneakily introduced a new setting that could end up causing brand safety and compliance nightmares for some brands. And then to close out the session, we're going to do a lightning round, something a bit different, but I picked out 4 new demand gen features and updates that have been released over the past 6 months and released or announced. And Thomas is going to give us his take and advice when it comes to making the most of those. we'll probably be running low on time by the time we get to that section. So Thomas will kind of speed through those at the end, but I think the updates are important to let people know about. And then, of course, as I said, we'll move on to the Q&A to close. And we've actually got a nice surprise bonus resource for you all to download and take home. I'm not going to say much more about that now, but it is a nice little asset to help support some of the material that we will be covering today. So that's everything that we've got into the agenda for the session. And if I just move on to the next slide, I think it's very relevant to mention that Thomas has actually published a super in-depth demand gen playbook where he goes into optimization strategies and frameworks in much greater detail than we could possibly cover in a single webinar. So if demand gen is really a big focus for you this year and your brand, and you're likely going to be devoting a lot of budget there, it's definitely worth getting a copy of that. And you can find a link to buy the playbook in the docs tab. And I know this is something that you've poured a lot of time and hours into, Thomas, and you're kind of constantly updating it too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. So well worth checking that out. So when we looked at the agenda, the first thing on the list was this big algorithm update. So we're going to dive right in and start with this. So Google rolled out this big demand gen algorithm update in late 2025. So Thomas, for those that don't know or haven't paid attention to what's going on here, could you explain the key changes Google has made to the demand gen algorithm and why they matter?
Yeah, exactly. So there was a very big core update on demand gen campaigns, especially in the algorithm of demand gen campaigns. That was like around mid 2025, and that shifted completely the demand gen campaigns away from the golden middle in the funnel where they were created towards a bit the mid to low funnel. And this update was announced by the official demand gen team at Google, and yeah, the big flip was actually that they are moving from contextual matching. It was the beginning when demand gen came out. It was matching the ads to the user, to the content a user is browsing, to a sophisticated interest-based algorithm. So right now, demand gen is not anymore a contextual matching algorithm, but it has an interest-based algorithm. So if we take an example, for example, the old way was the system found a relevant YouTube or Gmail ad placement and slotted in an ad and showed it to the user. But right now, the new way is that the system identifies first a specific product or service a user is likely to buy. Based on specific behavior across Google landscape, for example, search, maps, play, whatever store, and then finds the best creative to show them. So we have now a very similar meta TikTok algorithm, putting person, interest, product to creative, and not just matching with contextual matching the content user to an ad. So we have now a way more sophisticated interest-based algorithm. And this drives also the demand gen campaign type towards the mid to low funnel. But before it was always in the mid funnel. And this was a big update. And many demand gen campaigns have experienced it because suddenly they had way more conversions on the front end. If they looked at, for example, assisted conversion inside Google Ads, then they had quite the same, but in the front end on your Google Ads UI, you had suddenly more conversion on the demand gen campaign because this algorithm put your demand gen campaign away from the mid funnel towards the mid low funnel. But you can obviously have demand gen campaigns also in the let's say higher towards the mid towards the mid funnel if you have, for example, micro conversions or just YouTube engagement as conversion actions, and for example a max clicks bid strategy. So you can really still drive where you really want to have your demand gen campaign. But you have to know that the default demand gen setup is now with an interest-based algorithm towards the mid to the low funnel. So yeah, it has been a really interesting update there. And yeah, you should check your demand gen campaigns if you saw in 2025 anywhere a change in your KPIs, in your CPA or ROAS even.
Nice. Yeah, go back and check those reports and see if you can notice any kind of upticks there. That's a good advice. So to follow on from this is kind of elaborating on some of those top overview points that you made there in your initial response, Thomas. So now that Demand Gen is matching users to products first and not ads first, what signals seem to matter most now in practice in terms of how that matching works?
Yeah, in general, we have like obviously conversion signals from other campaign types, can be PMax, search, shopping, whatever. But on the internal Google Ads side, what we can do in order to feed the system with better signals in order to understand that the algorithm that our product might be relevant for an audience is, for example, to obviously have your product feed quality for ecom or creative with ad text. Very organized and very, let's say, optimized, because at the end, if you're an e-com brand, then demand gen signals come almost all from your product feed. And if you use like very good titles where you have keywords in, could be the best performing search terms from your search campaign for that specific category. You have descriptions where you also have, again, one of your best search terms in. You have different attributes of your shopping feed. You use, for example, additional images, attributes. You have, let's say a very good product feed. Then you can send Google the most accurate picture of your product that then later the algorithm can match to an audience that is looking for this product. The same goes for lead gen. If you have like very clear creatives with a perfect ad text, also the ad text can include, for example, best performing search terms where this works, or also, for example, titles or descriptions that are working on your search ads, for example. You can use them in order to, again, make it easy for the algorithm to describe what you're selling, and then match that later to a user that's interesting and ready to purchase. I also think that first-party data, for example, is very important, because we need to also show the algorithm what my best audience looks like. So, for example, customer match list, you can have high LTV buyers, repeat shoppers, whatever, to teach really the algorithm that these are my clients, and I want, for example, lookalike audiences made out of those first-party data. These are, for example, it's the second signal, I would say, which is really important. Feed your algorithm with first-party data in order to make nice lookalikes. And the third is also kind of like, engagement signals. I would say the system likes to track how users are interacting with your video assets, for example, how they're interacting with shorts ads, for example, compared to long form ads. And also I think this is really important to give also the algorithm a lot of different like creative assets variations in order to test out, because also those are very different signals. In order to see if shorts is working way better, then we should go further with shorts, or if it's long form, then more with long form. So I think you should have the shopping feed, the ad text, the creative like on point, I would say, in order to exactly tell the algorithm what you are searching for, in order to be up to date with this new core update, and make the best out of it. And first party data, I would say, is the second most important to use that. And nice. Also there you can get creative. You can upload different customer match lists with high LTV or whatever.
Perfect. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One thing that I've heard from marketers and having conversations with different people in the industry is that some people in the past found that demand gen, they viewed it to be very expensive, and that they weren't sure if they could make it work if they didn't have a huge amount of budget to put aside to devote to it. And I know, Thomas, you made a really interesting post about the scenarios where you think it makes sense to use demand gen, even if you haven't got a massive budget to spend. So could you maybe share with people what your advice is there when it comes to deciding, is demand gen right for me based on, if I've got a low budget?
Yeah, so exactly. My point was that demand gen is not a campaign type for everyone. And so I made a post for accounts that have a small budget, and I knew that everyone would ask me, what is a small budget for you? So I defined it with 50 euro daily budget for a demand gen campaign, single demand gen campaign. Remember, we only should have one demand gen campaign running unless there are exceptions. But it's always better to put everything together into one campaign and let it run, because it needs a lot of data, needs a lot of budget. So it's an AI powered campaign type. Okay, that being said, 50 euro a day, that was like my idea of a small demand gen campaign. So yeah, I always have this little checklist in my mind where I say demand gen with little budget makes sense first when your keywords on search campaigns have low search volume, or your best performing keywords have a low search volume, and you can't really scale search further because because there's not much demand around, or only, for example, your only ideal keywords are limited by search volume, and you cannot afford to have a more aggressive targeting because, for example, your margin doesn't allow it. Second, if you already have experience with meta ads and you know that there are some good creatives that you have that are performing in meta, and you can really attribute revenue profit towards them, and then okay, look, these creatives are good, they have a good standard, so why are they not why should I only have them on meta? I could also try and use them on a very similar landscape on the Google side with demand gen, and test it out there. And the third is obviously you have strong creatives. I think that's the must, because at the end demand gen is 60-70% creative driven. Obviously structure is important, ad text is important, price is important, but the creative at the end is the most important part of a demand gen, if it works or not. You can have a good bad creative, the best setup, the best targeting, but it will not really work well because it's not appealing. And I say you should skip demand gen campaigns with little budget if your search volume on search campaigns is still high, and that means search and shopping should take priority because they're in the low funnel. You have smaller CPAs, you have probably better ROAS, better POAS. So that's one thing. If you haven't tested meta ads or TikTok ads yet, I think usually you should use those platforms first because they're cheaper than demand gen. If you allocated different testing budget away from like vital campaign setups like search, shopping, or eventually also PMax, and when you allocate this away, you will see a dip in performance. Then it's a no-go to go towards demand gen. And also, if you're not sure if your creatives work and you don't want to waste your money just to test out demand gen, I would say then you should not use demand gen with little budget. In general, demand gen works better if you have more budget because, as I said, it's an AI-powered machine learning system that the more you train, the more you get signals, the more conversion data it has, it will eventually get better. But I'm not saying that demand gen only works with big budget. No, it's the opposite. It can also work with 50 euro a day, for example, or even less. I've seen campaigns with 30, 40 euro. If you know how to optimize them, they can really work well. So yeah, let's say the rule is it's an add-on strategy. Demand gen is an add-on strategy, and it's not a replacement for your core performance campaigns. Yeah.
Man, that was gold. I feel like we're gonna clip that segment that you just answered there, and we're gonna share that after the webinar because there's so much useful stuff in what you just said that's going to answer a lot of people's questions about how they should think about demand gen and make the most of it, even if they haven't got a huge amount to spend. Just to let people know, that summary that Thomas gave us there, he summarized that in a LinkedIn post about if you have a low budget, how to make demand gen work for you. You can find the link to Thomas's post there in the docs tab. But in the interest of time, we're just going to move on to the next slide here. Shout out to the Severance meme here. Brilliant show. If you haven't watched Severance, I highly recommend you check it out, but we won't go off topic. So Thomas, Google added a new setup guide for demand gen campaigns, and it's within the Google Ads interface on the right-hand side, as people can see on the slide that you created here. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on, do you think this setup guide that Google has added in is genuinely useful for most marketers, or do they need to be careful when following this setup guide?
Yeah, as with many Google Ads, let's say UI updates, they can be useful if you understand that they are not always neutral, right? So that's also what I'm saying. So these are designed obviously to guide a bit your behavior and not always help you, especially small or medium advertisers, to achieve all your performance goals. But that being said, this update actually is not that bad. I don't see it as a negative one. We have seen from Google lately quite some positive updates, and I also think this is, I would frame it also as a quite positive update. You don't have to trust everything that Google gives you, because there are also just estimations. But this one, I think it's quite useful also to get a sense if your audience is way too big, if your audience is way too small. I would say, like, for example, the first one, conversion goals, I think it's a good checkpoint, especially for advertisers who are not that experienced with Google Ads or in general. Yeah, I think Google just wants to verify if you have the right conversion action in place, and if your conversion action is active or inactive. I think it's quite important, because if you use an inactive one or one that has no data in the last 30 days, there's no point to bid towards it. So I think it's quite good. Also the bidding, I think it depends what your goal is with demand gen. Yeah, usually I start with max conversion. I don't go with max clicks, because I think it's more like a bit like a waste. But obviously it depends on your strategy, depends on what you want to do with demand gen campaigns. If you have conversion tracking available, there are some businesses who don't even have conversion tracking because of laws. But yeah, in general, I think it's quite a good one. And I like, especially, I would say, yeah, the targeting quality, the estimated performance, sorry, and available impressions, because these are data that I cannot really measure in the beginning. When I set it up, I can measure myself, is the ad strength good enough? Because if I put effort into my headline, then I know it's good enough for me. And if you have experience, you know this is good enough. I know the targeting quality. If I have a nice audience list set up, and I know my lookalike is not that limited, I know I have it right? But the estimated like performance and campaign impressions, I think that's something that can guide you a bit more if your campaign, if you can expect something out of your setup, as if you have it like this or not. And yeah, for me it's like a bit to sense if I should go way more into detail now, or if I should be still broader, because I will not reach a lot of people with the budget I have. So I think those numbers are quite useful. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So well done to Google on that one, and it's well worth paying attention to those numbers that you're going to see. So to follow on from the setup guide, I know this was another post that caught my eye, Thomas, where you were discussing the differences between CPC and CPM billing for demand gen. So with reference to the summary slides that people can see on screen here, how would you frame, your strategy to optimize for CPC versus CPM billing models for demand gen, and what would you like to let people know about your thinking here?
Yeah, so exactly, this is a strategy I came up with last year in a moment where I did not have any emails or optimized clients account. I just I was thinking about demand gen, and then I was saying, like, kind of, where does my demand gen ad spend really go? And I knew that demand gen has a mixed billing model, so we don't have just CPC billing, but we also have CPM billing, and each for example, if you look at CPC billings, we have Discover Image, Gmail display, and they charge, for example, per click. But if I know that YouTube video and Discover Video and Video Partner, they charge on a CPM level. So I was curious. It was just me thinking, if I knew this, if I have this information before launching a campaign, or before having someone create my assets, or me going in Banana Pro and create my assets for clients, if I know this before, then I can really make an impact and have an advantage compared to my competitors who don't know this. Why? Because I knew that if you're optimizing for CPC, then you're paying for engagement, right? And if you're optimizing for CPM, you are paying for attention. And if you know this from the beginning, you can follow my strategy that I came up with. And for example, the strategy is like this: all CPC bidding model channels you need to optimize is for the right engagement, right? Because I want to keep the clicks as little as possible, but I want the quality as high as possible. So we want to minimize colder users clicking our ad that just want to click because they're curious or whatever, but they're not ready to buy. So first thing you can do, if you have this information for your next demand gen or if your next creative ready, you can put, for example, first thing, you can pre-qualify the ads to kill curiosity, and put a price up front. Easy. You can put a price up front from 300 euro on your creative, on your headline. Why? Because if a user doesn't want to spend 300 euro, but only was ready to spend 150, he will not click. And if the user doesn't click, you don't pay. So it's a free impression, right? Because you want to optimize towards engagement. Another thing you can do is, for example, eligibility. You can say this is for B2B only. So all the B2C customers, audiences will not click because you already tell them, look, it's only for B2B, please don't click. So they won't click, you don't pay. Also, it goes, for example, you have different CTAs, right, in your demand gen. So I want to de-glamorize CTAs. For example, instead of hyping like buy now or sign up now, I would say see pricing or learn more. Something like learn more, for example, I would not use. I would say just see pricing and specs and be like very like not emotional about it. I would just say see pricing spec if you're interested, but I would avoid any hype CTA, because any CTA will just increase my clicks, and that increases then at the end my cost. For example, headlines that inform are important here. I don't want to make a clickbait out of it, because I know then I will pay. And if I have an informal headline where I just have one benefit instead of 5 benefits, or where I be honest and informative, that will help also you and your potential customer, and then you will save money. The same goes for image crops choices that reduce like accidental taps on mobile or something. And the other thing, if you know that for CPC, you can have the same logic for CPM, right? Because for CPM, we have to make every 1,000 impression work harder by improving visual hooks, cutting out like bad placements, headlines that are not working. So here, for example, my first step was to win the auction with quality. So for example, if I want to drop my CPM, my effective CPM. So for example, I could recut the first 2 seconds if the ad is not going well on the first seconds. I can put the proof, for example, a rating from customer demos, or also press logos or partner logos in the second 3 to 6, for example, after the hook. I can burn in captions that, for example, because most views can be muted also. So I think this is really good to drop your effective CPM. You obviously, on CPM, you want to make most out of 1,000 impressions, right? So you need to tighten who sees impressions. So you have channel controls on demand gen, which is amazing. You can see which channel is working better and which not, and exclude or include those channels. You can have, for example, these different audience lists where you see in-market audiences with custom keywords or custom URLs are performing better. So you need to start digging into those audience segments and kick out everything that doesn't work. We also need, for example, to control the frequency, right? For example, if you have creative fatigue, the CPM goes up. And so for example, you could rotate, like, I don't know, every time the CPA goes up for 20%, you could rotate your creative. So it's kind of like those automated strategies you can put in order to make the most out of it. And yeah, I would say there are also some don'ts that I put there. Don't run one video per angle, because that makes assets starvate, so the creative fatigue goes up, CPM rises. Don't broaden an inventory before the signals are, and you have enough signals. For example, you should always be quite specific in the beginning and then broaden out if you see it's working. And yeah, don't ignore the frequency, because high frequency is also means also then that you have a falling view rate. And once you know this, you can really make a big impact on your demand gen campaigns.
Yeah, there's the potential big cost savings here based on some of the things that you outlined there. And if you're interested and you want to read more into the full post where these slides that Thomas created came from, you can find a link to those in the docs tab. Thomas, we're going to move on now to talk about PMax and demand gen and where the potential overlap and cannibalization can come from. I'm just conscious of time, so if you could give us like a quick summary of where the overlap happens and why it's a problem and what people should do about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, cannibalization, of course, obviously, when both campaigns, PMax, demand gen, are bidding for similar territory or same territory audiences. And the primary overlap comes obviously from, we can have YouTube in-stream shorts. Both campaigns have YouTube placements. So obviously there can be an overlap. You have Google Discover and also Gmail. And soon you will also have Google Maps, right? Because there was also an update about it. We'll see later. Yeah, the thing is, PMax obviously is designed to win the conversion, right? Because it's a campaign type that is, let's say, acting on the low funnel. It's a conversion based campaign type. And if demand gen warms up a user, PMax might come in at the last second with a remarketing ad or any shopping ad, claims the credit, and demand gen looks on the front end on your Google Ads UI columns, it looks like it failed, right? But if you know where to look like in the assisted conversions, for example, then you can really see the real picture if your demand gen campaign is working or not, and if there is overlap or not. Yeah, the problem is obviously if we have cannibalization, we might have inflated costs, which can drive up effective CPM, CPCs. We also have, for example, a data fragmentation. If let's say the demand gen campaign would have been attributed 100% for the conversion, but PMax got in the last seconds or last days, whatever, and claims the conversion, then your demand gen campaign with data-driven attribution might have gotten only 0.1 of the purchase, and PMax got 90% of the purchase. So that means that the signaling, the conversion data inside demand gen is taking way longer in order to come out from the learning phase, because you have less conversion data in your demand gen campaign, because PMax gets everything and PMax can learn faster than the demand gen campaign. And yeah, I think we can do something about it, obviously. So it's not that it's that we always have these problems when we have PMax and demand gen. We can, for example, minimize cannibalization if we first already structure who is responsible for prospecting, who is responsible for remarketing. For example, you could say, I only want to run my PMax campaign on prospecting, and I only want to run my demand gen, for example, on remarketing. That's one possibility, but that's not obviously what you want, because demand gen campaign should also be there for prospecting. But you could, for example, exclude buyers, all site visitors. Keep the demand gen campaign as cold as possible, while having, for example, a PMax campaign that is running on the other side. I think that's one of the things. You can also obviously run a demand gen remarketing campaign, exclude all of the same users for example, that your Demand Gen campaign prospecting ad group is running, and let PMax focus on bottle funnel completely. Don't let remarketing on both campaign types. I think that's really important. Also, one thing is you can use different creatives. We should use, for example, your best creatives and UGC content in Demand Gen, and PMax probably have used creative that are more focused on product and offer, because they're way closer to the purchase than Demand Gen. And I think you could also, it's possible to split it in geography. So you can have a Demand Gen prospecting campaigns in your first Prio 2 regions, and the PMax running globally. In general, control is also important. If you keep a minimum budget for PMax, only increase the Demand Gen if like the overall costs and the profit stays good. For example, your blended POAS or ROAS should be healthy, right? So you should only increase Demand Gen if you see overall uplift in your contribution margin or overall revenue, right? So it's important to sense what's a warm audience and what's a cold audience, and then based on that, okay, I have these different remarketing leads that I could use for exclusion. Then you should try to choose which campaign type is responsible for prospecting, which one for remarketing. If you cannot, then you need to try to balance the audiences. But it's not easy. It's not easy. But Google says they're trying to not cannibalize the auction within an ad account. But it's not always that easy also for Google to determine that.
It just, as you were speaking there, it just reminded me of the podcast interview I recorded with Kirk Williams last year, and he was just talking about how he thinks of PMax as like a catfish because it's a bottom feeder and it's just going along collecting all the stuff at the bottom of the funnel. So making sure that you're optimizing your PMax campaigns towards that. So again, we'll just move on to the next slide here. I'm going to try and get through this as quickly as I can. So we've got some exclusive Demand Gen data from Lunio's new 2026 Global Invalid Traffic Report. You can grab a copy from the Docs tab, or you can scan the QR code there. We put a lot of work into this on our team. Shout out to Ben and Lizzie, who work alongside me on the content team at Lunio. They were both heavily involved in the creation of this. Ben is the one who's hosting the live chat for us here at the webinar today. I wouldn't be able to run these webinars without his support, so shout out to Ben. Ben's actually a good video editor too, and he created a video recap on our YouTube channel, which dissects all the key findings from this report. So if you prefer to watch content rather than to read through a full PDF report, you can check out the YouTube video, which is linked in the Docs tab. You'll get all our findings and analysis there. Ben also created some great custom GIF edits about Google Ads in that, which I'd say is worth watching the video for those in itself, but I'm biased, obviously. You'll see, you can see on the slide here the kinds of things that you'll learn, some of which we'll come on to cover in the next few slides here. So I'm not going to dwell too long on that. But if we move on to the next slide here, so just to address the graph, which is most relevant from this report to what we're talking about today, you can see the average IVT rate we recorded across the different Google campaign types. It should be said that this was based on a sample size of 2.7 billion clicks. So we're dealing with large volumes of traffic here to land at these numbers. So Google video campaigns running across the GVP network had by far the highest IVT rate, which I'm sure won't be a surprise to many of you. Then when we look at the next highest among the Google surfaces or within their ecosystem, we've got the display network with an average IVT rate of 12.02%. Again, I think most people are aware that the amount of junk traffic on the display network is higher than definitely some other properties that Google have. While the overall average of 12% is not too bad, we did actually find some web browser gaming and pseudo content sites that were driving average invalid traffic rates of more than 50%. And if you download the full report, we actually explicitly name some of those worst performing domains that we saw in our analysis. But of course, it's important to mention that alongside all the junk that you get in the display network, there are also lots of quality placements in there. Obviously, domains like the New York Times, domains like AccuWeather.com, they're driving much lower average IVT rates than some of these kind of junk domains that we're seeing pop up on some of our Lunio customer accounts. If you are running display campaigns and you haven't already downloaded a copy of Lunio's 100K placement exclusion list for display campaigns, you should definitely now go to the Docs tab, download that, and apply it to your display campaigns if you're running any budget there, to prevent throwing money on placements that are just not going to drive results. So then we come on to demand gen campaigns, which is what we're most interested in today, with an average IVT rate of 8.45%, so significantly higher than both PMax and standard search. As we said, because PMax is a lower funnel campaign type, it is that catfish bottom feeder, more of the budget tends to get funneled towards search. And when you look at these kind of large averages, that results in typically lower overall IVT rates. But with demand gen, because it has greater exposure to the display network, you do inevitably end up getting more IVT than you would with other Google campaign types. Ultimately, every business has a unique risk profile when it comes to bot traffic and IVT exposure. So you don't really know how your own Google campaigns stack up against these average benchmarks until you audit your traffic and kind of look, okay, where are we relative to these average numbers? And if you want to get those data in hand, then you can reach out to the team here at Lunio, and we will be happy to help you out if you're interested in auditing your traffic. There is a link to that in the Docs tab. That's enough for me about the graph here, but I just wanted to quickly highlight this section of this post that you made. Thomas, you actually made a Google Ads Christmas wish list. And if we zoom in on point number 4 towards the bottom of your post there, you said, to quote, "You wish that Google would work more aggressively on scam traffic and competitor fake clicks to make Google Ads, especially display and demand gen, safer for brands and waste less budget. I know there is a sophisticated invalid clicks algorithm in place, but it's not enough in 2026. And I just wanted to get your take on the kinds of suspicious activity you've noticed across the display and demand gen campaigns, and any red flags that you think people should be aware of when it comes to this kind of lower quality traffic.
Yeah, so especially in demand gen campaigns, we know that Google has integrated display network into demand gen, and display network can be quite fishy sometimes, right? We all know it. So for demand gen, usually the highest invalid rates that I see, for example, if I import GA4 columns for time on page, for example, engagement time, then usually display has the worst metrics ever. So what I usually do is check on GA4 metrics and see, okay, people are not staying on my website. They have probably a time on page of 0.00. So I know this is invalid traffic. So usually I see it on display. So I would just obviously exclude display. Usually my demand gen setup is with display excluded from the beginning. That's, I think, good to mention. I don't like display my demand gen because I want only Google owned properties. And on Google owned properties, for example, as on YouTube, Gmail, or Discover, I have way better rates because users are not usually humans and not bots. And on display, there are a lot of bots. Red flags are obviously the time on page on GA4. You can also have, for example, conversion rates that are like for micro conversions are over 100%, and okay, this is some bots clicking on any desired conversion actions that you put there. So obviously very high conversion rates. It's also normally a red flag that you should look out for. And I think demand gen there, as I see in the report from you, Lunio, they're on the, let's say, with 8%, a bit higher than Performance Max, but they're not too bad, right? And if you kick out display, and if you don't have max clicks conversion bidding, then bid strategy, then you're quite safe, and you can push it down, I think, towards probably 5 to 6. The more, if I would use just demand gen with display channel and max clicks, then I'm gone.
That's a recipe for disaster. To very quickly, we're gonna turn this into a real lightning round towards the end here, Thomas. So we might end up running over by 10 minutes. Apologies to everyone, just because I'm conscious we do need to get to the Q&A as well. But I just wanted to highlight this post from Claire Atkins, who's the CEO of Check My Ads, which is a nonprofit / brand safety consultancy, which helps businesses and consumers monitor the digital advertising industry, specifically identifying when ads are unknowingly funding fraud or fraudulent activity. So when we published our report last week, it actually got picked up by a few media publications, including the Media Post and the ANA, or Association of National Advertisers in the US. And you can see in Claire's LinkedIn post here, she screen grabbed the graph that Media Post published alongside their article covering our report. And she's just highlighting they're framed in a certain way. This is really like theft, or as I prefer to conceptualize it, it is like a stealth tax that most brands are unknowingly paying on all of their ad spend. And the rate of that tax varies significantly across the platforms and even the different campaign types that you're using. Also, I've long been a fan of Rand Fishkin. When I was first starting out in marketing, I learned a lot from Rand. So it was really nice to see him chime in the comments here and share his thoughts with Claire. So just to quote Rand, I suspect almost no one knows how bad this problem is, so long as the big platforms continue to claim attribution and show pretty dashboards. Gullible execs will keep throwing money at their paid marketing budgets, end quote. And that's really the key thing here. The money that is being lost to IVT could be invested in other marketing channels, as Claire is highlighting here, or if you're focusing on paid channels, you could be getting significantly more revenue back from every dollar you spent if you weren't paying the stealth tax. Obviously at Lunio, this is a problem that we're trying to help solve with our product, but even if you have no intention of taking a demo with us, I would urge you to take this problem seriously, because it is not wise to have blind faith in the ability of these tech giants to mark their own homework, because this invalid activity is helping to prop up their quarterly earnings reports. And it's just not in their best interest to aggressively crack down on this. Everyone knows it. That's the reality. I will step off my soapbox now, but if you want to check out Claire's post in full, or you want to read the coverage of our report in Media Post, you can find a link to that in the Docs tab. And I'll also say, lastly, last year I interviewed Rand Fishkin on the Lunio podcast about how AI is completely transforming the old model of how digital advertising works, where website traffic is declining across the board for most brands, and platforms like LinkedIn and YouTube are coming now to dominate influence. So if you want to hear Rand's thoughts on how AI is reshaping the world of marketing, you can check out my interview with him via the link in the Docs tab. So Thomas, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move to the next slide. I'm going to let you talk about the script that you developed, and then we're going to go on to the lightning round and see how fast we can get through these updates, and then we'll go on to answer
easy.
some of the Q&A.
Yeah, exactly. It was not me who scripted this Demand Gen script, but it was Ahmed Ali, which is a friend of mine who I really like his work. He's a martech, let's say not hacker, but he's really into coding and AI. So I asked him to do a collaboration with me to come up with a Demand Gen channel script. And Ali, Ahmed Ali, he's the founder of Marketect. It's also a platform that I use for Google Ads. And we just sat together and said, hey, it would be cool, because there is no Demand Gen script out there at that time. We only have PMax scripts. And we said, yeah, it would be cool to get a Demand Gen script where we can see all kind of channel reporting on campaign and ad group level. So we sat together, brainstormed, and then he wrote the code, and we did the Google Sheet together. And that's something that people can also buy on my Google Ads shop there. And it's very easy. You just copy paste the script and implement it in your Google Ads account, and then you have you can really have nice data of main KPIs like CTR, ROAS, CPA on campaign level, ad group level, and with different graphs for visualization. I'm a bit a visual learner, so for me that's very nice, and you can also share it with your client.
Nice.
So the client can have access to this data. And it's a really useful script.
For sure. And you can grab the link for that in the Docs tab if you are interested in checking that out. And some of those visualizations are super helpful, especially if you're working for an agency. So Thomas, I'm going to skip over this point about automated creative, because we just haven't got time, but we're going to go through here, and we're going to start with the lightning round. So we'll see how quick we can get through them. So Google Maps being added to the channel mix for Demand Gen. What should people know about this?
Exactly. This is the newest feature that will come out. The ad type is called promoted pins on Google Ads. on Google Maps, and you can add this to your Demand Gen channel mix. Probably something you want to add in the beginning just to test it out, right? Because you always have the option to deselect it later. But yeah, you can, for example, have a Google Maps only campaign, which is quite nice. We have not seen that before. We have seen it with local campaigns, but it's a bit different because it's just on promoted pins. So I'm excited for it. Something to test out. You cannot say if it's good or wrong in the beginning because for every campaign it's different. But for sure, something to test out and see how it performs. I think it's a nice feature. Yeah.
Nice. And if we come on to number 2 in the lightning round, we have got new location targeting options. So Thomas, what should people know about here?
Yeah, exactly. That was like Demand Gen came out without any location option targeting. It was everything by default, presence or interest, right? So that means if you had a Demand Gen campaign running, location Italy, and then you looked at GA4, you probably had not Italy as location, but you had so many other countries. So what I always did and what I always said is if you have a Demand Gen campaign with 1 or 2 locations, whatever, you have to exclude the rest of the world, right? Because you want to be bulletproof. And if you probably right now didn't know this, go to your GA4, look at all locations for your Demand Gen, you will probably see some locations you don't want. So Google gave us now also this option to set presence. You know it from search campaigns, for example. But it's not enough. I still want everyone to exclude locations if you don't want to target different countries that are not the ones you target.
Yeah.
Big. So a useful update, but not that useful at the end, because should be bulletproof and exclude locations.
Yes. So the next one, branded searches. What's the key takeaway here?
Yeah, branded. This one is a nice one. Google will give us the new conversion actions that are called branded searches, and they show the numbers of use of searches that users have made for your brand. That is coming after watching a YouTube video, for example, for your Demand Gen or PMax campaign. So it's like an extra level of reporting to kind of say this, like to say how much search uplift for your brand are you getting with your investment in PMax or Demand Gen. So this one is a really, really useful update. It's not available to anyone. You can only ask it through your Google Ads AM. Account manager. So yeah, if the account manager has access to, like, if your account is eligible for this beta, your account manager will set it up for you, and then you have a new conversion action set on secondary. And once you go to your Demand Gen campaign, look at your columns and include all conversion columns, and then segment conversion actions, you will be able to see the brand searches.
Nice. I'm sure quite a few people are going to be getting in touch with their account managers about that after this. But the 4th and final feature that we've got in our lightning round here, Thomas, is the new YouTube engagement goals addition to Demand Gen campaigns. So again, what would you want people to know about this?
Yeah, the engagement goals. This is something you can set next to, for example, clicks or conversions in the Demand Gen campaign. And this is really here if you have a YouTube channel, for example, from your company, and you want to grow subscriptions, for example, you want to grow likes. This can work really well, but you need to see then later in your YouTube channel if the followers that you get are really warm followers or subscribers, or just very cold random ones that you don't want. But that's something I'm also testing for my own YouTube channel. So yeah.
Yeah, Thomas, we had a conversation when we were preparing for this webinar. You were revealing to me some interesting insights about that. And, you know, at Lunio, we're kind of dabbling in YouTube. So some of that stuff may become relevant to us this year. But yeah. Thanks again for speeding through the lightning round. I'm just going to, as I promised, a little bonus takeaway for everyone here in the audience today. A couple of weeks ago, I was chatting to my friend Theo Yordanov, and I mentioned that I had this webinar coming up with Thomas, and he actually told me that he'd recently put together a deck documenting the strategy he used to break through a growth plateau on Demand Gen by leaning into untapped audiences. So specifically, his deck gets into lookalike audiences based on your CRM contacts, lower funnel in-market audiences and strategic competitor audiences. We've run out of time now. We're going to go over by 10 minutes to get to some of the Q&As, but obviously we haven't got the details to go into all of Theo's deck, but there's a lot of fresh ideas and approaches that you might want to try if you download this deck and read through it. He was kind enough to share it with me and pass on to all of you. So if you do get a chance, do follow Theo on LinkedIn. He's based in the UK. He's the organizer of the fantastic event up in Edinburgh called SEM Stories. I was speaking there late last year with Ben from the Lunio team. He's running his next event on May 14th this year. So if you are based in the UK, especially if you're north of London, it's well worth looking into. That's it for the content. As I said, apologies, guys. We've run slightly over time, but we are going to give 10 minutes to the Q&A here. So we will be wrapping up at 4:10. So I know there has been quite a lot of questions submitted for Thomas, but I'm going to sort these by most upvoted and kind of proceed on that basis. So Ben, it just looks like I can't bring the question up on screen anymore, but I'm going to read the question aloud. So Ben, if you could maybe work in the background and bring it up on screen for people. But Thomas, Sam asks, if Demand Gen has moved towards mid to low funnel, how does it work effectively alongside PMax? With PMax traditionally supporting the low funnel conversions, will it now outperform or being a more viable option for advertisers? I guess this kind of comes back to some of that cannibalization discussion that we were having, but how would you kind of summarize how you conceptualize thinking about PMax and Demand Gen now?
Yeah, exactly. It's a tricky one that we are all, let's say, struggling to make this right, because we also didn't get a lot of information from Google how to cope with this new core update together with a PMax campaign. But in general, to summarize, like Demand Gen, they're here for generate intent and create also new signals. And PMax is really that machine that goes full on conversion discovery and full on conversion efficiency. And Google says together they will give you a stronger full performance. But I would say Demand Gen is not replacing any PMax function. It will just power it. So I think we need to see how to adapt this synergy to see the better funnel flow. But I think stronger audience quality and improved conversion metrics, I think those are important levers here. But in general, it's also something that I said before, like we can steer how Demand Gen campaigns should be in the position of the funnel. If we use, for example, conversion value bid strategies with macro conversion, like purchases or leads, and we go like really deep in our audience, then we put it very close towards the bottom funnel. But if we leave it a bit more space, for example, if we just have max conversion or max conversion value biddings with not CPA or ROAS biddings, and we use it, for example, together with a view through conversion goal, which you can also have now, we place it a bit more again back towards the mid funnel, right? So we can really steer how it is in our funnel. But I don't think, I think in general, Demand Gen is here to generate more intent, and PMax is the one who makes the conversion discovery and efficiency. Yeah.
Nice. So Ben, if you could help me by moving on to the next question we got from Finn Sullivan. So Discovery/Demand Gen also used to perform very well for us for lead gen until Q4 2024. Then efficiency dropped off a cliff. PMax works very well. So how do you justify the incrementality and prove the efficiency of Demand Gen? So for someone in that situation, Thomas, how would you go about approaching that?
Yeah, so how to prove efficiency for Demand Gen campaign? In general, you should look at blended metrics also on your business metrics. For example, marketing efficiency ratio is a good one. But inside the Google Ads, you can look at assisted conversion, where I think this is the most value to prove if any Demand Gen campaign is working well or not. And then you see how they work together with other campaigns, because sometimes you see, let's say, a decline in Demand Gen main KPIs, but then at the end your PMax goes up. And then if you look behind the curtains on your attribution settings in Google Ads with assisted conversion, you see that at the end, the assisted conversion click ratio, for example, is very high on Demand Gen. That means that at the end, who drove the most conversions for PMax was probably your Demand Gen campaign. So that's something you should look in your attribution settings inside Google Ads and look there.
Nice. So Ben, we're going to move on to the third most upvoted question that we've got from Pauline. So the question is, Demand Gen used to perform very well for us in lead generation. Since October last year, Discover CPCs have been extremely volatile. Sudden spikes with no clear trigger, then back to normal, then spiking again. This makes the campaign hard to optimize and unreliable. Are you seeing the same issue? Any idea what's driving this this volatility and how to deal with it? So Thomas, does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I mean, those spikes, we knew them, right, from 3 years ago in PMax, for example. And usually they were because the campaign was lacking in conversion data. So they had like one day having an over delivery. It's called at Google that your daily budget is 50, but it spends 100. Next day it goes at 0. So third day again, over delivery and 0. It's because usually they're lacking conversion data or signals. And for example, if you see that it's only the Discover platform, then what I would do is to test how it performs, for example, on YouTube, or how it performs on any other channel, and exclude, for example, Discover. If you get there a more steady CPCs or cost, then you probably have a, let's say, a better outcome than in the long run. But especially for Discover, I did not see this. But in general, for cost spikes, I've seen it quite a lot. But yeah, Demand Gen is a AI-powered campaign type, and it needs a lot of data. That's really important to mention.
Nice. So Ben, if we move on to the question from Bianca, I think we've got time for two more questions, and then I'm gonna have to close and wrap up the session. But question from Bianca: where is the channel control, or do you have some accounts that don't have channel control?
I think by now, I think it's a global rollout. So if you have it, look at like in the Demand Gen on the left side in the Google Ads menu, you will have under reports, you have a channel control, or on your campaign settings. On your campaign settings in Demand Gen, you have the channel control under settings there, and there you can really tick each channel that you want. I don't know if some accounts don't have it. I've seen it now, I think in all of my accounts. So nice. Check again, Bianca, and if not, text on LinkedIn. I will show you if we don't find it. Maybe it's just you need to reach out to the EM, but I think it's a global rollout.
Okay. Well, yeah, there might have been cross wires there. So Bianca in the live chat there. But Ben, we're going to move on to the final question from Jacob. So interesting one for any lead gen advertisers out there. So Jacob asks, what type of creative would you recommend for a B2B SaaS business that would get a click on a YouTube ad to visit a lead gen landing page versus watching a video?
This depends, obviously, as always, on each campaign, on each, I don't know what creatives you have available. In general, I can say in general, the new update on the core algorithm for Demand Gen loves video. So in general, everything goes towards shorts and UGC created ads. For B2B, I've also seen that like videos can work quite well. In general, you need to know that if you add an image and the video at the same time, the image might get most of the cost in the beginning, because I've seen it quite many times. I don't know exactly why, but if you add the video before the image, then the video has more conversion data and will spend the let's say the amount the desired amount together with the image campaign. So that's something I can tell you, but I cannot tell you like what specific creative I can recommend for B2B SaaS. But in general, anything that works on Meta, it's worth testing on Demand Gen if it works there. And the algorithm loves video content.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like I remember the first episode of the podcast we recorded, Thomas, about a year ago now, we were actually going through your meta lookalike audience strategy for demand gen campaigns and
Yeah,
dissecting that. And if you're spending a lot on meta and you're generating a
yeah,
good performance there, you can definitely use some of those learnings, use some of that
exactly.
creative to fuel the performance of your demand gen campaign. So
Yeah,
so Ben, if I could just ask you to just remove Jacob's question, and I'm just going to close out the session. Apologies that we didn't get to every question. We overran. There was a lot of questions. I had to go with those that were most upvoted, but I want to say a massive thank you to you, Thomas, for joining us today and sharing so much useful insights there with us. I think, as I said, when you were going through your point about how to make demand gen work, if you've got a smaller budget, there was some absolute gold in what you answered there, and we're definitely going to be sharing that on our social channels in the days to come. But before we go and everyone kind of wraps up with the session today, Thomas, is there anything else you'd like to say or let people know about?
yeah. Thanks a lot, James and Lunia, for inviting me. The last strategy you told, like you just mentioned, for lookalikes for Meta, I think that's a really good one. That I know that still a lot of advertisers have tested it out and are still testing it. So that's also something. If you not have heard about it, yeah, probably reach out to me. I'll send you the link to the post. That's also a nice strategy that you can try out. But yeah, demand gen campaign will be there in the next 10 years or 5 years for sure. Google loves this campaign type. I also think that since there are a lot of advertisers who are bidding towards the low funnel, someday the demand also becomes steady. So Google also needs to increase their revenue. So demand gen is the one who creates revenue to later also increase the revenue on search or shopping for Google. So I think it's an important campaign type that we all should be like aware of and try it out and test and try to get better.
Yeah, like you said, 10 years is maybe, with the way things are
Maybe
today,
too
but
much,
certainly
but
5 years. I would bet a lot of money on 5 years.
exaggerating, yeah.
Pushing it out 10 years, we don't know what the world's going to be like in 10 years' time. But anyway, as I mentioned before, if you are interested in auditing your demand gen campaigns to find out like if you are exposed to much bot traffic relevant to the average benchmarks we presented earlier, you can find the link in the docs tab. But I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone for tuning in, for asking questions, for getting involved in the live chat. And if you're here live or if you're watching back on demand, we really appreciate it. And we hope to see you at our next webinar. But for now, we'll finish there. Take care and best of luck applying some of Thomas's insights to your demand gen campaigns over the coming weeks. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers.